The diplomatic station orbited the neutral moon of Kepler 442c, a massive structure of gleaming metal and crystalline viewports that housed representatives from 47 different species. Today marked the most significant gathering in galactic history, as the newly discovered human species would be formally introduced to the Galactic Council. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vraxian Empire adjusted his ceremonial robes nervously. As the Council's senior diplomat, he had overseen first contact protocols for over 2 centuries, but something about these humans unsettled him. Their preliminary reports were unusual. The humans seemed to lack the basic survival instincts that had allowed every other species to reach spacefaring status. The human delegation has arrived, announced his aide, a 6-armed Keltorian whose blue skin rippled with anxiety patterns. Through the massive viewport, Zethkar watched a modest human vessel dock with the station. It was unremarkable compared to the ornate ships of other species, painted in simple white and blue with strange symbols on its hull. The humans called them letters, a primitive but oddly efficient communication system. The airlock hissed open, and 3 humans stepped into the reception chamber. Zethkar had studied their biology extensively, but seeing them in person was still jarring. They walked upright on only 2 legs, had just 2 arms, and their faces were alarmingly expressive. Most disturbing was their apparent lack of natural weapons or armor. How had such fragile creatures survived long enough to develop space travel? The lead human was a female named Dr. Sarah Chen, according to the briefing files. She smiled widely, exposing her teeth in what Zethkar's research indicated was a friendly gesture, though it looked uncomfortably predatory to his reptilian sensibilities. "Greetings, Ambassador Zethkar," Dr. Chen said in perfectly translated galactic standard. "We're honored to be here. I'm Dr. Sarah Chen, xenobiologist and cultural attaché. These are my colleagues, Commander Jake Morrison and Dr. Ravi Patel." The commander was a tall male with short brown hair and alert eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of his surroundings. The other human, Dr. Patel, carried a device that Zethkar recognized as some sort of recording equipment. "Welcome to the Galactic Council," Zethkar replied, his translator rendering his hissing speech into human comprehensible sounds. "We are eager to learn about your species and formally welcome Earth into our community." As they walked through the station's corridors toward the main assembly hall, other delegates stopped their conversations to stare at the humans. The insectoid hive queen Vespa's compound eyes tracked their movement with predatory interest. The gaseous ethereals swirled in their containment suits, their patterns shifting to what Zethkar recognized as curiosity mixed with disbelief. "Your station is incredible," Dr. Chen commented, seemingly oblivious to the stares. "The bioluminescent panels are particularly beautiful." "Are they grown or manufactured?" "Grown," Zethkar replied, surprised by the question. Most species focused on defensive capabilities or strategic positioning when visiting for the first time. The Zephyrian delegates cultivate them. Commander Morrison's attention was drawn to a group of Chronothar warriors near a viewing area. The massive armored beings stood 7 feet tall and were renowned throughout the galaxy as the most fearsome fighters. They wore their traditional battle-scarred exoskeletons and carried ceremonial weapons that could cleave through starship hulls. "Impressive," Morrison said quietly. "Those are the Chronothar, right? I've read about their military traditions." What happened next would be discussed in diplomatic circles for generations. A low, rumbling alarm began to echo through the station's corridors. Emergency lights bathed everything in red, and automated voices in dozens of languages announced a containment breach in the xenobiological research section. The delegates began moving quickly toward evacuation routes, their various species' survival instincts kicking in. The Hive Queen's warriors formed protective formations around her. The ethereals condensed into defensive clouds. Even the peaceful Zephyrians began secreting emergency pheromones. But the humans did something unprecedented. Instead of seeking safety, they moved toward the source of the alarm. "We should help," Dr. Chen said simply. Zethkar felt his 3 hearts skip beats. "Dr. Chen, I must insist that we evacuate immediately. Protocol dictates, well, what kind of containment breach?" Commander Morrison interrupted, his hand moving to a device on his belt that looked suspiciously like a weapon. A Chronothar security chief approached, his massive form radiating authority. "Unknown entity has escaped from the high-security Xenobio labs. Class Omega threat level. All non-military personnel must evacuate immediately. Dr. Chen exchanged looks with her colleagues. What kind of entity? Vorthak Death Beast, the Chronothar growled. Captured from the Forbidden Sector. Highly aggressive, nearly indestructible. It has already killed 3 security teams. The name sent ripples of terror through the assembled delegates. Vorthak Death Beasts were legendary nightmares. Creatures so dangerous that even the warlike Chronothar gave their homeworlds a wide berth. They were living weapons, evolved over millions of years to be perfect killing machines. Their hide could deflect energy weapons. Their claws could tear through reinforced hull plating. And their mere presence triggered primal fear responses in most sentient species. As if summoned by their conversation, a sound echoed through the corridors that made every non-human present freeze in terror. It was a deep, resonant roar that seemed to vibrate through the station's very structure. Followed by the screech of tearing metal, emergency broadcasts crackled over the communication system. All personnel evacuate immediately. Vorthak Death Beast has breached containment level 7. Estimated time to critical systems breach 15 minutes. The Chronothar warrior checked his weapon and turned to go. Come, we must reach the escape pods before. He stopped mid-sentence. Dr. Chen was walking toward the sound of destruction, not away from it. Dr. Chen, Zethkar called out. You're going the wrong direction. She turned back with that same unsettling smile. We're xenobiologists. This is the discovery of a lifetime. Besides, someone might need medical attention. Commander Morrison was already moving to follow her, checking his sidearm. We've dealt with dangerous wildlife before. Dr. Patel activated his recording equipment. The research applications alone. Zethkar watched in horror as the 3 humans walked calmly toward what every rational being in the galaxy considered a death sentence. Around him, delegates whispered in dozens of languages, all expressing the same sentiment. The humans were either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. As another bone-chilling roar echoed through the station, followed by the sound of approaching destruction, Zethkar realized he was about to witness something that would change the galaxy's understanding of this strange new species forever. The humans, it seemed, did not run from monsters. They walked toward them. Dr. Sarah Chen moved through the station's corridors with a confidence that bordered on madness in the eyes of every alien observer. Behind her, Commander Morrison kept pace with military precision, while Dr. Patel documented everything with his scanner. The emergency lights cast eerie shadows that danced across the walls as they approached the source of the chaos. The sound of the Vorthak Death Beast grew louder with each step. Its roars were accompanied by the metallic screech of claws against bulkheads and the occasional explosion, as it tore through power conduits. Emergency force fields flickered and failed as the creature moved through the research section, like a living storm of destruction. Biosignatures are off the charts, Dr. Patel whispered, studying his readings. The electromagnetic field it's generating is unlike anything in our databases. It's as if the creature's very existence warps local spacetime. Ambassador Zethkar had reluctantly followed them, unable to abandon the humans to certain death despite every instinct screaming at him to flee. Through his communicator, he could hear the panicked reports from security teams throughout the station. Research Level 7 completely compromised, crackled a Chronothar commander's voice. Beast has destroyed 3 squads. Weapons ineffective. Requesting immediate orbital bombardment of the station. Negative, came the reply from the station commander. Too many civilian populations aboard. Continue evacuation procedures. Dr. Chen paused at an intersection, tilting her head to listen. It's just around this corner, she said matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather rather than approaching a creature that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. Dr. Chen, Zethkar hissed, his voice tight with fear. I must protest this course of action. The Vorthak are apex predators. They were exterminating starfaring civilizations when my species was still learning to make fire. There is no known defense against them. She turned to face him, and her expression was gentle but determined. Ambassador, in our short time in space, we've learned something important. The unknown is only frightening until you understand it. Every creature, no matter how dangerous it seems, is just trying to survive in its own way. Commander Morrison checked his weapon's charge level. Besides, we've dealt with apex predators before. Earth had plenty of them. Had, Zethkar's translator struggled with the past tense. Most of them are extinct now, Dr. Patel explained absently, focused on his scanner. Humans have a complicated relationship with dangerous wildlife. We tend to either domesticate them or study them until they're not dangerous anymore. The casualness of this statement sent chills through Zethkar's scaled hide. What kind of species could make apex predators extinct? They rounded the corner and found themselves facing a scene of utter devastation. The research section's main corridor looked like it had been hit by a controlled explosion. Bulkheads were torn open, revealing sparking electrical systems and twisted metal. Emergency foam covered everything in a white, sticky coating that hissed and bubbled where it contacted the creature's acidic saliva. And there, in the center of the destruction, was the Vorthak death beast. Zethkar's first instinct was to close his eyes and pray to his ancestors. The creature was even more terrifying than the historical record suggested. It stood 12 feet tall at the shoulder, its body a nightmarish fusion of predatory features evolved over eons of killing. Its hide was a mottled black and deep purple that seemed to absorb light, covered in natural armor plates that could deflect starship weapons. 6 legs ended in claws that could rend steel, while its elongated head featured rows of crystalline teeth and 4 eyes that glowed with malevolent intelligence. Most horrifying of all was the creature's psychic emanation. Vorthak death beasts projected an aura of pure terror that triggered fight-or-flight responses in every known sentient species. Simply being in its presence caused most beings to either flee in panic or freeze in terror. The humans did neither. Magnificent, Dr. Chen breathed, pulling out her own scanner. Look at the muscle structure, the way it distributes weight across 6 limbs. It's like nature designed the perfect killing machine. The death beast's 4 eyes fixed on the group, and it let out a roar that shook the station's superstructure. Zethkar felt his knees buckle as primal terror flooded his nervous system. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to run. Dr. Chen took a step forward. "Sarah, what are you doing?" Commander Morrison hissed, his weapon trained on the creature but not yet firing. "Look at its posture," she said quietly. "It's not preparing to attack. It's defensive. Confused. This creature has been ripped from its natural environment and locked in a cage. It's scared." "Scared?" Zethkar's voice cracked. "That thing has killed dozens of trained warriors." "Because they were threatening it," Dr. Chen replied, taking another step forward. "Every attack it's faced has been met with weapons and aggression. What if we tried something different?" The death beast shifted its weight, and Zethkar was certain he was about to witness the gruesome death of the first human ambassador. But instead of charging, the creature tilted its massive head, studying Dr. Chen with what almost looked like curiosity. "Sarah," Commander Morrison warned, "I don't like where this is going." Dr. Chen slowly lowered her scanner and extended her empty hand toward the creature. "Easy there, big guy. Nobody's going to hurt you." The death beast's psychic emanation suddenly changed. Instead of pure aggression, Zethkar sensed something else entirely: loneliness. The creature had been alone in its cage for months, subjected to tests and experiments. It was as much a prisoner as a threat. "That's impossible," Zethkar whispered. "Vorthak death beasts are incapable of any emotion except rage." "Every creature is capable of more than we assume," Dr. Chen said softly, still moving slowly toward the beast. "We just have to be willing to see it." The death beast lowered its head slightly, bringing it closer to Dr. Chen's level. Its 4 eyes studied her intently, and for a moment the corridor was filled with an impossible silence. Then Dr. Chen did something that would be remembered in galactic history forever. She reached out and gently touched the creature's snout. The death beast's reaction was immediate and completely unexpected. Instead of tearing her apart, it made a sound that Zethkar had never heard before. A deep, rumbling purr that vibrated through the deck plating. "Well," Dr. Patel said, his voice filled with wonder as he recorded everything. "That's definitely going in the report." Commander Morrison slowly lowered his weapon, shaking his head in disbelief. "Sarah, you do realize you're petting a creature that's been the stuff of nightmares for 3 million years? Dr. Chen smiled, her hand moving to scratch behind one of the creature's massive ear-like appendages. "Sometimes the scariest monsters just need someone to show them kindness." The death beast's purring grew louder, and it actually leaned into her touch like an enormous, deadly cat. Zethkar felt his worldview crumbling. Everything the galaxy thought it knew about Vorthak death beasts, about survival, about the nature of predators and prey, was being rewritten by a single human woman who apparently had no concept of appropriate fear. Throughout the station, emergency alarms continued to wail, but the reports of destruction had stopped. Security teams were reporting something impossible. The death beast had ceased its rampage and was now sitting quietly in the research corridor. News of what was happening in the research section spread through the station like wildfire. In the main assembly hall, delegates from 47 species watched the security feeds in stunned silence. The images being transmitted seemed to defy every law of nature they understood. Dr. Sarah Chen sat cross-legged on the deck, plating next to the Vorthak death beast, scratching behind its auditory organs while it made contented rumbling sounds. The creature that had sent 3 Chronothar strike teams fleeing in terror was now acting like an oversized pet. "This is impossible," growled War Chief Thax, the most senior Chronothar military commander present. His scarred exoskeleton bore the marks of 100 battles, and his forearms tensed with barely controlled aggression. The human female must be using some form of mind control technology. On the main view screen, they watched Dr. Chen pull what appeared to be food from her pack and offer it to the death beast. The creature sniffed it delicately before accepting the offering with surprising gentleness. "Our sensors detect no unusual energy signatures," reported Science Coordinator Veldtar of the Crystalline Hegemony. Their silicon-based form chimed musically as they processed the data. "The human appears to be using no technology at all." Queen Vespa's compound eyes reflected the screen's glow as her insectoid form leaned forward. "Perhaps the humans have evolved a natural immunity to the creature's terror emanations." "Impossible," interjected Elder Wisp of the Ethereal Collective, their gaseous form swirling with agitated patterns. "We have tested the terror response across thousands of species. It is a fundamental reaction to the death beast's psychic signature." In the research corridor, Dr. Chen was now examining the creature's claws with scientific fascination, while it patiently held still for her inspection. Commander Morrison maintained a watchful position nearby, but his weapon remained holstered. Dr. Patel moved around them both, documenting everything with obvious excitement. "The claw structure is incredible," Dr. Chen was saying to her recorder. "They're not just weapons, they're precision tools. Look at the way the secondary digits can extend for fine manipulation. This creature is far more intelligent than anyone realized." Ambassador Zethkar, who had remained frozen in the corridor throughout the entire encounter, finally found his voice. "Dr. Chen, I must ask, how are you doing this? How are you not afraid?" She looked up from her examination of the death beast's foot. "Oh, I am afraid. My heart's been racing this whole time. But fear isn't the enemy, Ambassador. Letting fear control your actions is the enemy." The death beast rumbled agreement as if it understood every word. "On Earth," Dr. Chen continued, "we had similar creatures. Big predators that everyone feared. Lions, tigers, bears, sharks. Most people saw only the danger. But a few of us learned to see the animal behind the reputation. Once you understand their needs, their motivations, their fears, everything changes. But those were simple animals." Zethkar protested. "This is a Vorthak death beast. They're known to be intelligent." "Yes," Dr. Chen interrupted. "I can see it in its eyes. This isn't just a killing machine. It's a sentient being that's been treated like a monster for so long. It started believing that's all it could be." Back in the assembly hall, the various species representatives were having heated discussions in dozens of languages. The implications of what they were witnessing went far beyond simple first contact protocols. "If the humans can pacify a death beast," the Chronothar war chief was saying, "what else might they be capable of? Their files indicate they've only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. Yet they show no fear of the galaxy's most dangerous predator. Their psychological profiles are fascinating," added the Zephyrian peacekeeper Gentle Song. "They appear to approach unknown situations with curiosity rather than caution. It's either the trait of a supremely successful species or one destined for quick extinction." The station's commander, a pragmatic Centaurian named Fleetmaster Corbex, was coordinating with security teams while watching the feeds. "All units maintain distance but continue monitoring. Do not engage unless the humans are threatened." "Sir," came a report from one of the security team leaders. "The humans they're talking to it. The death beast is responding with vocalizations we've never recorded before." Indeed, on the screens, the assembled delegates could see an unprecedented sight. The death beast was making a variety of sounds, from deep rumbles to higher-pitched chirps, while Dr. Chen nodded and responded as if carrying on a conversation. "It's trying to communicate," she announced to her colleagues. "The sound patterns are too complex to be random. There's definitely language here, or at least proto-language. Dr. Patel was frantically adjusting his equipment. I'm recording everything. The linguistic implications alone. We could be witnessing first contact with a species that's been written off as non-sentient for millions of years. Commander Morrison shook his head in amazement. Sarah, only you would try to have a conversation with something that was trying to kill everyone an hour ago. It wasn't trying to kill anyone specifically, Dr. Chen corrected. It was panicking. Imagine being captured, caged, experimented on, and then having armed soldiers shooting at you every time you try to defend yourself. Of course it would lash out. The death beast seemed to respond to her words, making a series of lower frequency sounds that almost sounded mournful. Yes, Dr. Chen said gently, placing her hand on the creature's neck. I know, it's been lonely and scary, but you're not alone anymore. In the assembly hall, the silence was profound. Every delegate present was witnessing the rewriting of galactic history. The Vorthak Death Beasts had been considered the ultimate threat, the one thing that united all species in their fear. Entire star systems had been abandoned. When Death Beast sightings were reported, now, a single human was sitting with one like they were old. Friends, this changes everything, whispered Science Coordinator Veltar. If the Death Beasts are sentient, if they can be communicated with, if they can be befriended, added Elder Wisp, their gaseous forms shimmering with complex emotions, then we have been committing genocide against a sapient species for millennia. The weight of this realization settled over the assembly like a heavy blanket. The various species had built their entire understanding of galactic dangers around the threat posed by Vorthak Death Beasts. Military strategies, territorial boundaries, even trade routes had all been designed around avoiding them. The humans. Queen Vespa clicked thoughtfully. They approach the universe differently than we do. Where we see threats to be eliminated or avoided, they see puzzles to be solved. War Chief Thax growled low in his throat. It is either wisdom or madness. On the screen, Dr. Chen had somehow convinced the Death Beast to lie down, and was now examining its underside where several obvious wounds were visible. It's been hurt, she announced. These look like burns from energy weapons. How long was it being shot at before it broke free? Commander Morrison checked his datapad. According to the security logs, about 40 minutes of continuous engagement. 40 minutes of being attacked while trapped in a cage, Dr. Chen said angrily. No wonder it was upset. The Death Beast made a soft sound, almost like a whimper, and Dr. Chen's expression softened. Don't worry, she said soothingly. We're going to take care of you. No more cages, no more experiments. You deserve better than that. Throughout the galaxy, the feeds were being broadcast to every major world. Billions of beings across hundreds of species were watching the impossible scene unfold, and each was coming to the same incredible conclusion. The humans, these strange newcomers to galactic society, had just accomplished something that had never been done before. They had turned the galaxy's greatest nightmare into a friend. Word of the incident spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours, emergency sessions were being called on every major world as governments struggled to comprehend the implications of what had occurred at the diplomatic station. On the Chronothar homeworld of Chronax Prime, the High War Council gathered in their obsidian chamber. The massive warriors, each scarred from countless battles, watched the recorded footage in silence. Their species had built their entire culture around the concept of honorable combat. But what they witnessed challenged everything they understood about strength and courage. The human female shows no battle stance, observed General Krexthul, his forearms gesturing at the holographic display. She approaches the Death Beast with neither weapon nor armor, yet it submits to her will. Not submission, corrected Elder Warrior Vashitar, whose ancient exoskeleton bore scars from the legendary Battle of the Void Nebula. Watch her movements again. She shows no dominance displays. This is something else entirely. In the crystal spires of the hegemony's capital world, the silicon-based beings resonated with complex harmonics as they analyzed the data. Their mathematical minds struggled to process the probability matrices involved, the statistical likelihood of peaceful contact with a Vorthak Death Beast approaches 0, chimed Science Prime Resonance 7. Yet the humans achieved it within minutes of encounter. Either our mathematical models are fundamentally flawed, or these humans operate outside normal probability parameters. Meanwhile, on the diplomatic station, Dr. Chen continued her examination of the Death Beast, while a growing crowd of observers watched from a safe distance. Security teams had established a perimeter, but their weapons remained holstered on direct orders from Fleet Master Corbex. The scarring patterns tell a story, Dr. Chen explained to Dr. Patel's recorder. This individual has been captured and escaped multiple times. Look at these marks on its limbs, those are restraint burns. And these gouges along its spine suggest it's been subjected to neural probes. The death beast, who Dr. Chen had begun calling Big Guy for lack of a proper name, rumbled in what seemed to be agreement. Its 4 eyes tracked her movements with obvious intelligence, and it had begun mimicking some of her hand gestures. Ambassador Zethkar had finally overcome his paralysis enough to approach within speaking distance, though every instinct still screamed at him to flee. Dr. Chen, how long do you intend to interact with this creature? As long as it takes to help it, she replied simply. Big Guy here has been traumatized by repeated capture and experimentation. It's going to take time to build trust. Build trust. Zethkar's voice rose an octave. Dr. Chen, this is not a domesticated animal. This is a Vorthak death beast? Dr. Chen looked up from her examination with a patient smile. Ambassador, with respect, you keep saying that like it means something specific. But what is a death beast really? It's just a label we've put on something we don't understand. To emphasize her point, she reached up and gently scratched behind one of Big Guy's auditory organs. The massive creature leaned into the touch and made a sound that could only be described as a contented sigh. On Earth, Dr. Chen continued, we had similar labels. We called wolves monsters until we learned to work with them. We called whales demons of the deep until we discovered they were intelligent and peaceful. Every monster we've ever encountered turned out to be just an animal we didn't understand yet. Commander Morrison, who had been coordinating with station security, approached with a report. Sarah, we've got a problem. The Galactic Council is demanding that the Death Beast be destroyed immediately. Apparently half the delegate species are threatening to withdraw from the Council if it's allowed to remain alive on the station. Dr. Chen's expression hardened. They want to kill Big Guy? The official order uses terms like contained threat and galactic security, but yes, they want it dead. Big Guy seemed to sense the tension in the conversation. Its head rose alertly, and a low rumble emanated from its throat, not threatening, but clearly concerned. Over my dead body, Dr. Chen said quietly, and there was steel in her voice that made even Commander Morrison step back slightly. Sarah, Dr. Patel interjected nervously, we can't start an interstellar incident over what? Over the life of a sentient being that's been tortured and abused for who knows how long. Dr. Chen stood up, her hand still resting on Big Guy's flank. This creature has shown more intelligence and emotional depth in the past few hours than some species manage in their entire diplomatic presentations. As if to prove her point, Big Guy made a series of complex vocalizations while gesturing with one of its smaller manipulator arms toward the assembled security forces. The meaning was clear even across species barriers. It was asking about the weapons pointed in its direction. It's okay, Dr. Chen assured the creature, speaking in the same soothing tone she'd use with a frightened child. They're scared of you, but they're not going to hurt you while I'm here. Ambassador Zethkar felt his worldview crumbling further. Dr. Chen, you cannot possibly be suggesting that we grant diplomatic protection to a Vorthak death beast. Why not? She asked simply. If it's intelligent, if it can communicate, if it shows emotional complexity, then what's the difference between Big Guy and any other sapient species in the galaxy? The question hung in the air like a physical weight. In the assembly hall, the various delegates were asking themselves the same thing as they watched the live feeds. Fleetmaster Corbex's voice crackled over the station's communication system. Dr. Chen, this is Fleetmaster Corbex. I need you to step away from the creature immediately. I have direct orders from the Galactic Council to neutralize the threat. Dr. Chen looked directly into the nearest security camera. Fleetmaster, with all due respect, I'm a xenobiologist. My job is to study and protect alien life forms. I'm not moving. Big Guy seemed to understand that it was being threatened. It rose to its full 12-foot height and positioned itself protectively between Dr. Chen and the security forces. But instead of displaying aggression, it simply stood there making no threatening moves but clearly ready to defend her. Stand down immediately, Corbex ordered. The creature is displaying hostile behavior. No, it's not, Dr. Chen replied firmly. It's protecting me the same way I'm protecting it. That's what friends do. The word friends sent shockwaves through every observer. Friendship implied emotional bonds, mutual understanding, trust. The idea that a human could form a friendship with a Vorthak death beast was beyond the comprehension of most galactic species. But the evidence was undeniable. Big Guy lowered its head and nuzzled Dr. Chen's shoulder gently, making soft rumbling sounds that were clearly affectionate. "This is madness," whispered Queen Vespa to her neighboring delegates. "The human treats the most dangerous predator in the galaxy like a beloved pet." "Perhaps," replied Elder Wisp thoughtfully. "The problem is not with the human's behavior, but with our understanding of what dangerous actually means. On a dozen worlds, military leaders were already reassessing their strategies. If humans could befriend death beasts, what other impossible things might they be capable of?" The implications were staggering. But for Dr. Sarah Chen, standing in a damaged corridor next to a creature that had been feared across the galaxy for millions of years, the situation was much simpler. She had made a friend, and she wasn't going to let anyone hurt him. The standoff that followed would reshape galactic politics forever. But it all came down to one basic human principle. Sometimes, the right thing to do is also the most dangerous thing to do. And humans, as the galaxy was rapidly learning, had never been particularly good at backing down from danger. The standoff between Dr. Chen and the Galactic Council's forces lasted for 6 tense hours. During that time, something unprecedented happened. Big Guy began to actively communicate. Working with Dr. Patel's linguistic analysis equipment, Dr. Chen discovered that the Death Beast vocalizations followed complex grammatical patterns. What the galaxy had dismissed as mere animal sounds were actually a sophisticated language, with tonal variations that conveyed not just meaning, but emotional context and temporal references. "This is incredible," Dr. Patel whispered, his hands flying over his translation matrices. "The linguistic complexity rivals our most advanced artificial languages. Listen to this pattern." He played back a sequence of Big Guy's rumbles and chirps, enhanced and analyzed by their equipment. "This roughly translates to small, soft friend who shows kindness to the pain bearer. It's not just calling you a friend, Sarah. It's describing you as someone who shows compassion to those who suffer." Dr. Chen felt tears prick her eyes. "Big Guy, have your people been hurt by others like this?" The creature's response was a long, mournful sequence that needed no translation. The pain in those sounds was universal. Meanwhile, the political situation was growing more complex by the hour. Representatives from various species were arriving at the station, some demanding immediate action against the Death Beast, others calling for a complete reevaluation of everything they thought they knew about the Vorthak species. In the assembly hall, Ambassador Zethkar found himself in the unusual position of defending humans to his fellow delegates. "Honored colleagues, I have observed these humans for several hours now. Their approach to the unknown is unlike anything in our experience." War Chief Thax slammed his primary fist on the conference table. "They are either brave beyond measure or insane beyond help. Either way, they are dangerous to the established order." "Perhaps," interjected a new voice, "the established order needs to be challenged." Every head turned toward the speaker. Elder Prime Nexus of the Ancient Coalition had arrived, their crystalline form radiating the wisdom of 10,000 years. The Coalition was the oldest surviving civilization in the galaxy, and their words carried immense weight. "The Ancient Coalition has observed the rise and fall of countless species," Nexus continued, their voice resonating with harmonic overtones. "We have seen civilizations destroyed by their inability to adapt, and others elevated by their willingness to see beyond their preconceptions." Elder Wisp's gaseous form swirled with curiosity patterns. "Elder Prime, are you suggesting we reconsider our entire understanding of the Vorthak species?" "I am suggesting," Nexus replied, "that we have been wrong about many things for a very long time." Back in the research corridor, Dr. Chen was making another breakthrough. Big Guy had begun drawing symbols in the scattered debris on the floor, using one of his smaller manipulator claws with surprising precision. "Jake, look at this," she called to Commander Morrison. "These aren't random scratches. This is pictographic writing." The symbols were complex but clearly representational. Big Guy drew what appeared to be star maps, then pointed to specific locations while making questioning sounds. "You're asking about home," Dr. Chen realized. "You want to know if you can go home." Big Guy's response was a sound so heartbreakingly hopeful that even the hardened security personnel watching from a distance felt their resolve waver. Dr. Patel was frantically cross-referencing the star patterns with galactic databases. Sarah, if I'm reading this correctly, he's indicating a sector that's been quarantined for 3 centuries. The Forbidden Sector. The one we're not allowed to enter because it's supposedly overrun with death beasts, Commander Morrison said grimly. What if, Dr. Chen said slowly, it's not overrun with monsters? What if it's just home to a species we never bothered to try to understand? The implications of her words sent shockwaves through everyone listening. The Forbidden Sector contained dozens of star systems with potentially habitable worlds. If the Vorthak were actually a peaceful species defending their territory rather than mindless killers, Fleet Master Corbex's voice interrupted their thoughts. Dr. Chen, I have new orders from the Emergency Council. You are to accompany the creature to a secure holding facility where proper xenological studies can be conducted. Absolutely not, Dr. Chen replied immediately. Big Guy isn't going back in a cage, ever. Dr. Chen, you are under direct orders. From who? She interrupted. Earth isn't a member of the Galactic Council yet. You have no authority over us. Commander Morrison stepped forward, his hand resting on his sidearm, and as the ranking military officer of the human delegation, I'm declaring Dr. Chen and her research subject under Earth diplomatic protection. The legal implications of this statement rippled through the station's command structure. Technically, the humans were correct. As a non-member species, they weren't bound by council directives. In the assembly hall, the debate had reached a fever pitch. Species that had been allies for centuries were taking opposing sides, while others demanded time to consult with their homeworlds. This is exactly what I feared, growled War Chief Thax. The humans have been here less than a day, and already they're destabilizing everything. Perhaps, suggested Gentle Song of the Zephyrians, destabilization is what we needed. How long have we maintained peace in the galaxy through fear and ignorance? How many opportunities for growth have we missed because we refuse to look beyond our preconceptions? Queen Vespa's compound eyes reflected the chamber's lights as she processed this. The Hive has always believed that adaptation is the key to survival. These humans, they adapt differently than we do. They don't eliminate threats. They transform them into opportunities. Elder Prime Nexus resonated with approval. The young queen speaks wisdom. The humans show us a different path forward. Meanwhile, something extraordinary was happening in the research corridor. Other station personnel, initially terrified of the Death Beast, were beginning to approach cautiously as they watched Dr. Chen's continued interactions with Big Guy. A Zephyrian maintenance worker named Soft Breeze was the first to venture close. Drawn by scientific curiosity, Big Guy noticed the newcomer and made a questioning sound to Dr. Chen. It's okay, she assured the creature. Soft Breeze is a friend too. Big Guy carefully extended one of his smaller manipulator arms toward the Zephyrian, moving slowly and non-threateningly. Soft Breeze, trembling with both fear and fascination, reached out to touch the offered appendage. The moment of contact was electric. Soft Breeze's bioluminescent pattern shifted to colors that indicated wonder and joy. It's warm, the Zephyrian whispered. And I can sense curiosity, intelligence. This is no mindless beast. Soon a small crowd had gathered. A Centaurian engineer named Swift Current brought tools to help repair some of the corridor damage, and Big Guy watched with obvious interest, occasionally making suggestions through gestures that proved remarkably helpful. Dr. Chen smiled as she watched the interactions. This is how it should be. Understanding instead of fear, cooperation instead of conflict. But not everyone was pleased with these developments. In the assembly hall, the more conservative factions were growing increasingly agitated. This is madness, declared Representative Shardmind of the Silicon Collective. One day of contact and suddenly we're ready to overturn millions of years of established survival protocols? Sometimes, replied Elder Prime Nexus calmly. Madness and wisdom look very much alike. The difference only becomes clear in hindsight. The crisis was far from over, but something fundamental had shifted. For the first time in galactic history, beings from different species were working together, with a member of the most feared predator species in known space. And, at the center of it all was a human xenobiologist, who simply refused to accept that monster. And friend were mutually exclusive categories. The galaxy was about to learned that humans had a very different definition of impossible. The breakthrough came 18 hours after first contact, when Dr. Patel's translation algorithms finally cracked enough of Big Guy's language to enable basic two-way communication. The first real conversation between a human and a Vorthak death beast would be recorded for posterity, but its immediate impact was far more profound than anyone anticipated. Big Guy, Dr. Chen said carefully, using the simplified sound patterns they'd established. Can you tell me your real name? The creature's response was a complex series of tones that Dr. Patel's equipment rendered as Keeper of Stories who remembers the lost. Keeper, Dr. Chen repeated, and the death beast rumbled approval. That's a beautiful name. Are you really a keeper of stories? What followed was a revelation that shook the foundations of galactic civilization. Through halting but increasingly fluent translation, Keeper began to tell the true history of his species. The Vorthak weren't mindless predators. They were the galaxy's historians. For millions of years they had traveled between worlds, collecting and preserving the stories, cultures, and knowledge of species they encountered. Their seemingly aggressive behavior was actually defensive, triggered by the systematic extermination campaigns that various galactic civilizations had waged against them. We remember everything, Keeper explained through the translation matrix. Every species that rises and falls, every culture that blooms and fades, we are the memory of the galaxy, and for this we are hunted. Dr. Chen felt sick as the implication sank in. How many of your people are left? Keeper's response was heartbreaking. Fewer than 1,000 Vorthak remained, scattered across hidden refuges in the Forbidden Sector. They had watched from the shadows as the galaxy built a civilization founded on the systematic genocide of their species. But why didn't you try to communicate before? Dr. Patel asked through the translation system. We tried, Keeper replied. For centuries we tried. But fear speaks louder than words. When beings see us, they see only death. They do not wait for stories. In the assembly hall, the delegates listened to the live translation feed in stunned silence. Every assumption they'd built their civilizations on was crumbling. We have been committing genocide, Elder Wisp whispered, their gaseous form shifting to colors that indicated deep shame. For millennia, we have been destroying the galaxy's living memory. War Chief Thax's massive frame shook with suppressed emotion. The Chronothar Code of Honor? We have violated every principle we claim to uphold. But Queen Vespa was thinking practically. If the Vorthak are truly historians, then they possess knowledge that could benefit every species in the galaxy. Technologies, cultures, wisdom from civilizations that fell before we achieved spaceflight. Elder Prime Nexus resonated with complex harmonics. More than that, they could teach us about ourselves, about the mistakes we've repeated, the patterns we've failed to see. Back in the corridor, Keeper was sharing something even more remarkable. Using his claws, he began to inscribe symbols on the metal floor. But these weren't star charts. They were genetic markers. Every species we meet, he explained, we remember their biological essence. We have preserved the genetic patterns of 3,000 extinct civilizations. Dr. Chen's breath caught. You could bring them back? Not bring back, Keeper corrected gently. But remember properly. Honor their existence. Some fell to disease, some to war, some to natural disasters. All could have been saved if their knowledge had been shared. The implications were staggering. The Vorthak weren't just historians, they were living libraries containing millions of years of galactic knowledge. Commander Morrison, who had been quietly coordinating with Earth Command throughout the crisis, stepped forward with news that would change everything. Sarah, I just received word from Admiral Chen. No relation, he added with a slight smile. Earth Command has made a decision. We're formally requesting that Keeper be granted asylum on Earth, with full diplomatic status. The gasps from the assembled delegates were audible even through the communication system. Furthermore, Morrison continued, we're extending an invitation to any Vorthak refugees to settle in human space. We have worlds that could accommodate them, and we'd consider it an honor to host the galaxy's historians. Fleet Master Corbex's voice crackled over the comm system. Commander Morrison, Earth cannot possibly be serious about this proposal. Deadly serious, Morrison replied. Dr. Chen has convinced us that we're looking at the greatest potential cultural exchange in galactic history. The humans would be idiots to pass that up. Dr. Chen smiled at Keeper, who had been following the conversation through the translation system. What do you think? Would you like to see Earth? Keeper's response was immediate and surprising. I have already seen Earth. We observed your species as you developed. We watched you make fire, build cities, reach for the stars. You were interesting. Interesting how? Most species follow predictable patterns. They develop technology, expand their territory, encounter resistance, and either adapt or fall. Humans do something different. When you encounter resistance, you try to understand it. You turn enemies into allies. You transform problems into opportunities. Dr. Patel looked up from his equipment. That's why you weren't aggressive with Sarah. You'd been studying human behavior patterns. Yes, Keeper confirmed. When Dr. Chen approached without weapons, without fear sent with curiosity instead of hostility, she behaved exactly as our observations predicted a human would behave. This is why I trusted her touch. The revelation that the Vorthak had been studying humanity for millennia sent another shockwave through the galactic community. If they had been wrong about the Death Beast, what else might they be wrong about? In the assembly hall, a historic vote was being called. Elder Prime Nexus had proposed a complete revision of the Galactic Accords, acknowledging the Vorthak as a sapient species and establishing protocols for peaceful contact. The vote wasn't unanimous. Several species abstained, and a few hardliners voted against, but it passed by a significant margin. For the first time in galactic history, the monsters were officially recognized as equals. But the real change was happening on a smaller scale, in a damaged corridor where a human xenobiologist sat with the galaxy's most feared predator, planning the future of interspecies relations. Keeper, Dr. Chen said, would you be willing to teach us about the species we've lost, the mistakes we've repeated, the knowledge we've forgotten? I would be honored, Keeper replied. But in return, may I ask something of your species? Of course. Teach us to do what you do. Teach us to turn fear into friendship. The galaxy needs more of that. Dr. Chen smiled and scratched behind Keeper's auditory organs, prompting the now familiar contented rumble. I think we can manage that, she said. And in that moment, the galaxy became a smaller, friendlier place. 6 months later, the galaxy was a very different place. The human diplomatic vessel New Horizons approached the coordinates that Keeper had provided, deep in what was formerly known as the Forbidden Sector. Dr. Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, watching the view screen with barely contained excitement as they drew closer to their destination. Sensors are picking up multiple structures, reported Commander Morrison from the navigation station. Sarah, you need to see this. The view screen revealed something that defied every expectation. Instead of a barren wasteland populated by savage monsters, they were looking at a magnificent civilization. Crystal spires rose from living coral reefs that had been cultivated in space, creating vast cities that stretched across multiple asteroids. Graceful ships moved between the structures, their bioluminescent hulls pulsing with communication patterns. The Vorthak didn't just preserve other species' knowledge, Dr. Chen breathed. They've been building with it. Keeper, who now wore a specially designed communication collar that translated his speech in real time, moved up beside her. Over the months, he had grown comfortable with the human crew, though his presence still occasionally startled new visitors to the ship. This is Sanctuary, he explained. One of 7 refuges where my people have hidden for the past 3,000 years. We have been waiting for the galaxy to become ready for us. And you think we're ready now? Asked Dr. Patel, who had become the galaxy's leading expert on Vorthak linguistics and culture. You made us ready, Keeper replied simply, by showing us that not all species choose fear over understanding. As their ship moved deeper into the sanctuary system, they were joined by an escort of Vorthak vessels. But these weren't the crude, aggressive ships that galactic militaries had reported over the millennia. They were elegant, organic-looking craft that seemed to flow through space rather than pushing through it. Traditional Vorthak bioengineering, Keeper explained. We grow our ships rather than building them. They are alive in partnership with us rather than merely tools. Dr. Chen shook her head in wonder. We could have been learning from you for millions of years instead of shooting at you. Perhaps, Keeper agreed. But perhaps the galaxy needed to make its own mistakes first. Wisdom that comes too easily is rarely valued properly. The New Horizons was guided to a docking platform that appeared to be grown from the same coral-like material as the rest of the city. As they disembarked, Dr. Chen found herself facing something she had only dreamed of. An entire civilization of beings who had once been considered the galaxy's greatest threat. There were hundreds of Vorthak moving through the structures, and the diversity was remarkable. Some were smaller and more agile than Keeper, with adaptations for different environments. Others were larger, with specialized appendages for various tasks. All of them moved with the same fluid grace that had made them such effective warriors when cornered. Different subspecies? Dr. Chen asked. Different roles, Keeper corrected. We adapt ourselves to serve the needs of knowledge preservation. Some of us are optimized for data storage, others for rapid travel, still others for detailed observation. They were led to what could only be called a library, though it bore no resemblance to any archive Dr. Chen had ever seen. Living crystalline structures pulsed with stored information, while Vorthak librarians moved between them, their touches causing displays of holographic data to bloom in the air. "This is beautiful," Dr. Patel whispered, his recording equipment working overtime to document everything. An elderly Vorthak approached them, moving with the careful dignity of great age. Keeper made a complex series of sounds that the translator rendered as formal introductions. "This is Ancient Memory Holder, our eldest historian," Keeper explained. "She has personally witnessed the rise and fall of over 40 civilizations." Ancient Memory Holder studied Dr. Chen with eyes that held depths of experience no human could imagine. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of eons. "You are the human who chose friendship over fear," she said. "Keeper has told us much about your species. We are curious about your motivations." Dr. Chen considered her words carefully. "We believe that understanding is always better than ignorance, even when understanding is more difficult or dangerous. And if understanding reveals uncomfortable truths about yourselves, then we learn from those truths and become better." Ancient Memory Holder made a sound that the translator indicated was approval. "This is why we chose to trust your species. Despite our long experience with galactic civilization, you seek growth rather than comfort." Over the following days, Dr. Chen and her team were given access to knowledge that revolutionized their understanding of galactic history. They learned about the ethereal collective's origins as refugees from a dying star, about the true reason for the Silicon hegemony's mathematical obsessions, about the tragic civil war that had nearly destroyed the Chronothar before they developed their honor code. But more importantly, they learned about humanity's place in the larger story of galactic civilization. "Your species is young," Ancient Memory Holder explained as they stood before a vast display showing the evolution of sentient life across the galaxy. "But you possess something that most species lose as they mature: adaptability without aggression. Most civilizations become rigid as they grow powerful. They see change as threat rather than opportunity. But not humans," Dr. Chen asked. "Humans actively seek out things that challenge their assumptions. This is extremely rare. In our observations, only 3 species in the past million years have shown this trait consistently. What happened to the other 2? Ancient Memory Holder's response was sobering. They were destroyed by species that feared their adaptability. The galaxy has not always been kind to those who refuse to accept that things must remain as they are." Dr. Chen felt a chill. "Are you saying humanity is in danger because of how we approach problems?" "No," Ancient Memory Holder replied. "I am saying that humanity may be the galaxy's hope precisely because of how you approach problems. The challenges facing galactic civilization are growing more complex. Climate collapse, resource depletion, ideological stagnation. These problems cannot be solved by species that insist on doing things the way they have always been done. But they might be solved by species that pet death beasts instead of shooting them," Commander Morrison observed wryly. Ancient Memory Holder made the sound that indicated amusement. "Precisely. The formal ceremony took place in the central amphitheater of Sanctuary, with representatives from dozens of Vorthak communities in attendance. Dr. Chen, wearing ceremonial robes that had been grown specifically for the occasion, stood before the assembled historians as Ancient Memory Holder spoke. For the first time in 3 millennia, the Vorthak formally welcomed members of galactic civilization to our libraries. In recognition of their courage, wisdom, and dedication to understanding over fear, we name the humans keepers of new paths, and grant them access to the collected knowledge of the galaxy. The ceremony was broadcast across human space and to every major world in the galactic community. The image of Dr. Sarah Chen standing among hundreds of beings that had been considered monsters just months before became one of the most iconic in galactic history. But for Dr. Chen herself, The most meaningful moment came afterward, when Keeper approached her privately. "I have a gift for you," he said, producing a small crystalline device. "This contains the complete genetic and cultural records of humanity's development, as observed by my people over the past 50,000 years." Dr. Chen accepted the device with trembling hands. "Our entire history?" "Your entire story," Keeper corrected, "including the parts your own records have forgotten. We believe that understanding where you came from will help you decide where you are going. And where do you think we're going?" Keeper's eyes held warmth that would have been impossible to imagine from a death beast just months before. "Wherever you choose, my friend. But I suspect it will be somewhere wonderful." As the New Horizons prepared to depart Sanctuary, carrying with it the beginning of a new age of cooperation between humanity and the Vorthak, Dr. Chen stood on the observation deck watching the beautiful city recede into the distance. "No regrets?" Commander Morrison asked, joining her at the viewport. "About what?" "About completely overturning galactic civilization because you decided to pet something that everyone else was afraid of." Dr. Chen smiled, thinking about all the knowledge they were carrying back to human space, all the friendships that had been forged, all the possibilities that had opened up because someone had chosen curiosity over fear. "None whatsoever," she said. "After all, the best discoveries usually come from the worst ideas." And across the galaxy, on 1,000 different worlds, sentient beings were beginning to ask themselves a simple but profound question. What other monsters might actually be friends? If only someone was brave enough to find out. The galaxy would never be the same, and that, as any human would tell you, was exactly the point.